Hello, everybody. I'm Christine Schiavone, and our show is Spiritual Exploration. I am here this evening to speak with Stephen Popiotek, who is my guest right here. And we're going to talk about UFOs and planetary ascension. Now, Stephen has been a guest on my show on many occasions, but pre pandemic. We haven't really seen each other since before the pandemic.
That's right, except that maybe another Friends show, but yes, exactly.
That's it. Yeah, I think you might have been on Tommy's show, and I might have seen you once since then. But other than that,
Being on your show, it's been quite a while already.
it's been a while, and we do have to, now that all this is over with, and let's say hope it stays over with. It'll be more often.
All right, thank you.
Anyway, but UFOs and planetary ascension. What does that mean?
Yeah, it's certainly a process, and in order even just to define that, I mean, there's I mean, in terms of my own background, I have a bunch of other videos also on YouTube, and I think also with Christina with her show. Before we definitely had some episodes where we discussed some of these topics a little bit before.
Sure.
But it's been years as well since we got into that.
Right.
And also with part of the process today is about trying to give some updates as well as a backstory to some of the topics what we're going to be analyzing. Part of the idea of UFOs obviously is a big topic for a long time, and it's been coming up even more in the mainstream news, along with different things going on in Congress and a lot of different documentaries, a lot of pressure going on from different groups in the Pentagon to try to release more information about UFOs, and so of course there's been a whole tit for tat going on within that community where they one group wants to release more information, another group tries to sabotage it, or they end up only giving us a little bit of drip as opposed to the fuller energy.
Well, nowadays with people that have video and still pictures on their telephones that they're carrying around with them, there's a lot more evidence coming out, a lot more showings of these vehicles in the sky, so it's more believable now.
Oh yeah, and just even by the fact that that Congress had pushed for more hearings last year, for the Pentagon to release more information about it, even though they only got a watered down version. The public got a seriously watered down version of it. They at least got a basic classified briefing of a certain number of anomalous sightings and videos of these craft that are flying around in the ocean.
That they're admitting that they exist.
Exactly,
now.
yeah, and like upgrading more of the offices to like be able to analyze them and expanding more the definition of what they're about. But of course, that's like the tip of the iceberg, and so it's not so much about us going into those aspects of the discussion today, because we are about spiritual exploration here and about more understanding the direct experience of what that means to be in communion, say, with our positive star nations as our Native Americans and different indigenous people, all different cultures, of course. This is not, I don't want to rehash too early information about this idea, but the understanding is that that the star nations are returning, and that there's a lot of different positive and negative extraterrestrial groups, of course, that have been interested in our planet, in our society, in our evolution from day one.
So some of them are here to benefit us, and some are here to damage us.
Oh, very much. Yes.
Really?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
So how can you tell who's who?
Well, it's a similar idea of how do you tell the difference between, say, an angel and a demon, or angelic energy versus a lower astral energy.
Right.
There's certainly a very different feeling around that you would
well,
get.
Yeah, different ambiance, yeah.
For sure, and depending upon the level of charge, right? If it's a more powerful presence on either side of the fence, it's going to give you a certain kind of emotional response or sensation in your body, whether it's hair standing up, whether you feel cold or warmth, whether you feel like, are you going to feel more love energy, or do you feel more fear?
I see what you mean.
Or do you feel this overwhelmed by a presence, or is that presence powerful but yet helping you to also expand into who you are? Is it mirroring your power in a sense and showing you that you are more beautiful and larger than you think? That's very different than something trying to come in and like be suppressive and aggressive
over.
And cord you and take energy and siphon things from you. And so in that regards, that there's a similar idea of vibration where the positive extraterrestrials that are multidimensional, depending upon how high they are, because obviously the ones that are more 3D and 4D are going to have physical bodies like us.
Right.
So but they can, as you go higher 4D and into 5D, they can start shifting more and phasing in and out. So
Shapeshifters?
Well, that's more like fifth dimensional one would be shapeshifter for me. on fourth dimensional, they would still have physical bodies, but astrally, even good shamans in a 3D could be able to project different images, and people sometimes think that they're shape-shifting. We have different stories of people actually physically shape-shifting in our realm in certain groups, but that's not a general trend, in that sense. And the idea is that the positive ones are here to help us in our planetary ascension. And,
well, that's what I'm saying, because now they're saying that these extraterrestrials have been visiting Earth and helping out with certain things for thousands of years. And they see in the hieroglyphs in the tombs of the pharaohs and whatnot that there seems to be drawings of UFOs and little beings and things like that, and they're saying that it's very possible that they helped build the pyramids.
For sure.
Because how'd they get those many ton rocks or boulders up there?
It's especially with the precision that we're talking about is pretty impeccable.
The tools were very primitive as far as that's concerned, as far as Earthlings are concerned.
Yes, for sure. And there's definitely a combination because we have ancient cultures like Atlantis where we had a lot of advanced technology, but a lot of that came because we had an early visitation from these different star nations, different UT groups that walked more freely during the Atlantean days, and during different periods of Atlantis. Atlantis spanned, quite a large duration of time. So they did have more of an agrarian earlier culture before they became more technologically advanced and before they crashed, so to speak, and that whole civilization had went under. But there was a lot of extraterrestrial presence that was both positive and negative, where that had occurred also back in that day. That was really that was the inroads.
That because some of them were not here for our good; they were here for our detriment. Or for their own good, but it was to our detriment.
Yeah, it's just like tracking back like the record of say like the idea of like the Illuminati families and some of these rule by royal decree idea of these royal bloodlines that were more not always positive but certain negative bloodlines that have been around and how they're so obsessed with tracing their lineage for millennia. It's not just because they're trying to keep it in line in the 3D level. These power families work consciously with these extraterrestrial groups, and this has been going on really since Atlantis times. And we're at the culmination of reconciling that karma of that period, so that we can be able to move past it right into this larger cycle of ascension, where we're moving from, as like the Law of One books, or we always like those books that we're moving from more the third chakra to the fourth chakra as a planetary society, which is part of the ascension idea. And that's a common definition, is that we're moving more into a vibration of love energy, at a quantum level, where the DNA itself has been reorganizing to be able to hold more of that love energy and exteriorize into manifestation a society based on that.
They say like now that we have entered the age of Aquarius, that there is supposed to be more positive stuff going on, more love, more peace. Now the age of Aquarius, like every other age, will last 2,000 years. And they say that during this age, we're supposed to see world peace.
For sure. And the thing is that this is it's even different. It's even a next level because we're not just repeating an old cycle of the zodiac anymore. This age of Aquarius is like the next turn of the spiral. It's not just a circle of like the idea of like entering into a continual going from one age to the other, like we have over each
now
25
it's going to spiral
6,000 years. Well, because it's going into a larger cycle that has that's reflective more of Earth's school evolving itself to hold more space for what love is about on an actual principle for society.
Well, from your mouth to God's ears.
Yeah, 100%. But the problem is that before that occurs, because it's not just that there's only positive ascension. There's negative ascension. So there's planets that evolved in the dark side, which is where the negative extraterrestrial groups that have chosen more the shadow aspect of their growth.
And they come
from they went through their own evolutionary growth to kind of perfect more of their dark arts, and their or as the Law of One books they call the service to self. You see that theme reflected in different, there's so much themes that are going on in different in the media. in like some of the Marvel movies or some of the different, sci-fi movies, if you look at it over the years, you can extract things that are actually real and that are quite relevant, where there's been seeds of disclosure present in so many of these movies, as you know.
Oh yeah, Star Trek.
Yeah, so much of that, exactly.
All of those movies about outer space, they get that information. It's all real stuff that is ahead of its time.
Especially like the principles behind it, at the very least, and technologies and things you're referencing. So it's some idea. It's like preparing the population for that idea of like the bigger disclosure, which is definitely coming up. Whether they want to or not, they understand that but the idea is that governments like to control the narratives, of course, as they do everything, and you see that going on in the political system, especially. But they understand that if they don't get a grip on the storyline, then other people will, or they don't, or they're afraid that the real truth will come out, and then they can't control the narrative, right? And so, because they don't want people to understand that they've been having deals with these different extraterrestrial groups going on for many years, and that this past as of the beginning of 2022 and late 2021, there's been an acceleration of these treaties by a lot of the governments, but not in a positive way. And this is why we're kind of going into more of a situation that we need to bring more divine light and love into transmute and call in more of our positive galactic allies to help us out and be able to.
And who might they be?
To be able to like mitigate this new violation, I would say. And that's kind of a longer story, but the positive ones, I mean, there are a lot. There's a large contingency coming in from Andromeda, actually, not even from our own galaxy, but from Andromeda galaxy. There's a lot of them coming in who want to help us out, and they're helping not only free us, but helping other planets be set free from this negative control structures.
Are they having problems too?
Oh, because that's an empire across our galaxy. I mean, they're okay in Andromeda, but they're coming in to help us in the Milky Way to be set free from a lot of these oppressors that have controlled so many planets for so long.
Thank God for them.
So they're coming as an extra bandwagon. I mean, there's a lot of groups converging, but they're ones that I also, to give viewers a little background, because the work I do also, I do a lot of channeling work and what I call cosmic shamanism sessions with clients, and help people basically tap into past lives and help star people, especially the idea of star seeds, to reconnect more to their galactic lineage. So maybe I should give a little preface background before I jump into the modern stuff, what's happening at the moment, to give people background.
Well, my question is there a possibility that the good and evil forces from beyond will have a war among themselves?
Oh, it's been going on at different points in time, and it's going on now, literally, for sure. Even recently, when I had a trip in Florida about a month ago, and there was a lot of last a few weeks ago. Really, time is really relative these days. But I mean, I get a lot of updates, not just from working with people and my own contact. I had a lot of early contact with. I mean, I'm 51. I had contact with extraterrestrial beings telepathically when I was like 18 years old. So this is not something new. I've been working in this field for a long time, and experienced it in directly, from my experience and working with clients. Has only refined that process of understanding what's going on with the bigger picture of their own piece of galactic history and planetary history that people carry with them, that oftentimes gets suppressed or distorted, that we can help them re-evoke. As we all have keys, right, to this idea of this planetary ascension, because a lot of us come from different star systems on a soul level that are coming here also now literally and want to help humanity evolve to the next level. And so we're like the ground troops that have kind of went into the into the trenches of duality here, to be able to learn not only our own lessons, but also build a pathway like the ray of the sun going through a cloud to open a space so that new light and love energy can be able to radiate into that depths.
That's an interesting thought.
100%, yeah. So, that's so. But the thing is that a lot of these people in power that are in the higher positions of our military-industrial establishment, they've known about star people for a long time. They've also been aware that the DNA of humanity has been shifting since the 60s, especially where people were showing up at extra strands of DNA that reflect this higher evolution that's happening. That's both physical and spiritual.
Are these people human, or are they aliens that appear human?
Oh no, I'm talking about us, like as human. Well, human slash star people, meaning like a lot of us that are in human body that have had a lot of human incarnations. Right, we're not from here to begin with. Right, we're from other planets.
Yeah, they say we came from the stars.
That have evolved,
and that our makeup is the same thing that makes up stars.
Well, that's on a literal level too, and I'm talking more on the soul level. Just that that the Earth school is more of a 3D school that's shifting into 4D.
Well, that's what we're here for, to learn.
Exactly, and but also be the way showers, for the next
True.
level. And everybody has different angles to that purpose. But the idea is that star people who have, say, come from different star systems like planets and like the Pleiades and Andromeda and Arcturus, Vega, many different systems, they're we're like the front line crew who has come in, and so that we're helping prepare the space so that when the Earth makes this critical quantum shift, which is coming up, then the hearts and minds of humanity need to be prepared to receive the positive grounding of our allies, so that when they make their physical ships land on the Earth in a more massive demonstration, that they're here.
Everybody's just going to know
that
where they are.
Yeah, exactly, and that, but they want to make sure that they're doing it from the right space where people aren't freaking out about it or are more open to receive, their clear intention, which is to assist us because of so much distortion of negative influence over humanity. Of course, if that happens too suddenly, there, of course, you always hear that excuse, oh, people aren't ready for it, but I don't believe that. I think it's just more of that, more of the control structures of our matrix, of our governments have created such a monopoly of trying to control people's consciousness and keep people in fear instead of love.
Not only fear, but
and anger.
worshiping
Yes.
the wrong beings.
Start with that, exactly that too, exactly.
And this I don't understand, especially that I understand that there's a lot of young people who are doing devil worship, and where do they get that from?
Well, this goes into the same idea because these negative extraterrestrials, work with the demonic hierarchy the same way that the positive extraterrestrials work with the angelic hierarchy, and so they all have their followers on different realms, including the physical, and so it's just as above, so below. So some people think that
seems to be more prevalent now than ever before.
Yeah, because also more light is illuminating what's already here that's been hidden. So they're also becoming more daring and coming out more.
You think just like UFOs are more prevalent because of the cameras, this is more prevalent now because it's just coming out more.
Yeah, these groups have been around for a very long time. It's just that now they're getting more ballsy, and also on a other level, I think they also realize that their time is more limited, so they're really trying to make more of a grand stand.
Oh, sure, let's get out of it as much as we can.
And like let's try to milk it and make people It's the same thing that happened during the COVID, since we have been talking before COVID. It's like look what happened during that whole 2-year period. There was so much energy of fear that was being harvested and control of the population because they were really, it wasn't just about, obviously that's a whole story in itself, but the idea is that on a metaphysical level they were trying to create a global fear grid around the whole planet that we were seeing visually. It was so tangible and disgusting, especially here in New York in the beginning. We were like, this is disgusting. Like they're really trying to, because they understand that as we go closer to fifth dimensional awareness, our ability to create what we want to as a society is magnified like 100-fold. So they understand our manifestation ability is getting faster and stronger. So they have to. So the idea of controlling information is even more important for the dark siders, because they know that if we all of a sudden we're really uniting together under a love umbrella, under a common unity umbrella of love and truth and cooperation and connectivity, instead of like control and competition and then we would be able to create a whole different society that we can image way outside the bubble of what we've ever seen before. And then that's when the positive galactic ancestors can come in more quickly and be like, okay, now people are finally getting the message here that it's time that we're able to connect together and create something grander. But they want to keep this narrative going where we're out of the heart, in fear and anger, fighting each other. And
that's
way,
how you control people. That's right.
It's the same old thing. Oh, but it's just that it's even more important now because they understand that the potency of our ability to create is so much stronger. So that when we really see that this veil is being put around us by different groups to divide us and make us not aware of the fact that there is this new energy coming in, that there is a greater source of chi energy and love energy coming from Mother, Father, Earth, from divine, from the galactic center, like the viewers see in our picture behind us.
Right.
That we're creating new spaces of integrating larger awareness, that we are part of a larger family of divine celestial beings that are in a human form.
So do you predict that is what will eventually take over, where most people will be aware of the good side and go to it?
I mean, at least the ones that are choosing to stay around. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely going to still be a lot of people, I think, checking out at some point physically.
Well,
Obviously it's part of that.
we're all gonna die sometime.
Well, I didn't mean that. I meant just in terms of like, just that not everybody in the population is here for like the new Earth school. Like a lot of people are going to reincarnate on another planet like Earth to start the cycle over again.
Oh, in other words, not stay here, go to another planet.
Yeah, because there are other schools like 3D planets like Earth where, because not every person on this planet's ready for that love vibration, but there is a lot that are,
Right.
And then there's but the point is that we want to be able to show a wider space, both. We want to create a greater more positive timeline where that realization is more actively present. Because right now there's just so much cloudy energy going around.
Tell me about it.
Where it's really
and we
trying
know
to.
where it's coming from too.
It's really trying to stop people from seeing the gravity of the situation that we're really under, by limiting their view into such a narrow scope that we can't see all this other thing that's happening in this other spectrum right
Yes,
around
and
us.
so that they can take over and just control everything and everybody.
And there are literally groups, that we've identified with the work I do. I do personal work with people, but also group work and like planetary grid work. We do work at different locations, both physically as well as remotely. So like I'll do, say, work with clients on Zoom in other states or other countries, and and as I work with them, I need to see what's going on in the area around them, because especially if they're a new person that I'm working on, I have to get myself
What's going
familiar.
on in your country?
Well, that's just in their house underground, like ley lines. If how's the energy flow moving underground? Is there like stagnation that's in the area? So there's things I tune into with the angels and guides before I even work on them, to be able to create a clearer space so that they can connect more to these new energies that are coming up from the Earth's core up. As well as from the sky down above, so it's like a two-way stream. Energy coming in as well as energy rising from below. Kind of like the Kundalini idea going up the spine. Mother Earth is doing the same thing, where she's having a physical quickening in the core of her body, because she really has there's really also a lot of plasma, super dense plasma that's in the core of the Earth. It's not just a big metal iron thing that scientists talk about swirling. It is also that the idea of the inner sun is not just a spiritual concept, but there's also a physics professor in Germany, Professor Meyl, M-E-Y-L. He's done some cool books and really out there more in terms of opening people's perspective. But he also talked about this idea that there's a hyper dense plasma, like gas, that's in the core of the Earth that's very dense. And so to me, this is what we always see as, looking in on it. We're saying we see this bright energy. It's not just physical. It's not just a metallic energy. But the idea is that because it's a plasma, just like think of like gas and light bulbs that have, where the electricity makes the gas go into a higher level, like on a quantum level to release light. This plasma energy in the core, this is part of Gaia's spiritual heart and like literal energy core. So she's going through a quantum leap physically, literally, where she's going to release more green energy instead of yellow energy, which is more the heart chakra array. And so this is literally part of her shifting frequency.
And who's this?
Oh, Mother Earth.
Mother Earth.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So that energy in the core of the planet is really reaching a quantum level. So it's not just reaching a quantum level spiritually as some kind of like symbolism. It's a physical quantum shift that just like you would have in your own Kundalini when you open up one chakra to the next and have the energy moving up the spine through the spinal fluid. Those waves of chi energy, are very powerful. And Mother Earth's magnetic field, the planetary magnetic field is shifting a lot, very quickly. Every year it's moving, many more miles. So there's a lot of changes happening astronomically, like geomagnetically, that are part of this transformation. But the problem is that, again, it's all about the narrative. You hear there's too much distortion on, certain media out where they only want to focus on one angle of, say, climate change when they're trying to. It's all about, again, trying to make people feel guilty about something, keeping people separate from actual, like, real changes that are positive. In other words, of course, we don't want pollution. Right? Of course, pollution is not good for the environment or good for anybody. That's obvious.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. But the way they politicize it these days is that they only provide us with solutions that aren't really real. They only give us like smaller alternatives, and then they think that, and then the idea of like carbon tax credits in different countries, corporations still get away with all these pollutings, and we're still using oil. We're still using basic things that are like old technology that's already outdated compared to where we could be, that with what we already know is possible, you know, in terms of scientists having other technologies that are way beyond that, you know, but because they because they don't want people to be too free, they still control, you know, the back and forth idea of what is available, you know, and so the same thing goes into that on a higher level here, is that until we really break out of this like idea of scarcity thinking, of control, of fear, you know, this is we need to really be anchored more into love and true solution, you know, and being open to calling in our positive galactic allies and the angels more directly to be like, okay, you know, we want to unite together here and show us what's going on, you know, and you know.
Do you think that a lot of our technology has come from beyond?
I mean, a certain amount, you know, a certain amount has also been just very like suppressed, like back from Tesla days, you know. So many documentaries been talking with Tesla.
Tesla had to be the smartest man ever.
Yes.
And you know what? He and I share a birthday.
Oh yeah! Oh my God, that's amazing! Wow, full circle. That's great.
Yeah. He's exactly 95 years older than me.
Wow, that's okay. Speaking about illumination again, light.
But I recognize his picture whenever I see it.
Amazing, amazing. No, I mean, you know, and there was a friend of mine who died a few years ago, but he was a genius physicist, engineer. He had worked for the government for like 30 years, Pentagon from the 50s to the 80s. There's some information about him still out there. His name was Alexis Guy Obelinsky, and he had a cool. He became a whistleblower back in the 80s, exposing some corruption that was going on, and he decided to turn all his focus towards building healing machines instead of war machines that he was doing originally. So he had this quiet little space upstate New York where he was treating people for all different types of diseases very successfully.
Really?
And had a lot of high-level people going there that were keeping it quiet and stuff. And, you know, but because his technology was so revolutionary, you know, by mainstream science, it would violate so many laws of physics, you know, that we have, which is, you know, more just idea, again, who controls the narrative in what field. You know, every major field has their own little people, like the Pope's idea, where they want to control the storyline, you know. So if you go against Einstein, for example, then they won't fund you, you know, if you go, you know, so whereas so many things that Tesla discovered were so outside the box, you know, but again, they want to keep people locked into this lower cube idea. So anyway, he had a healing machine up there where he did some really amazing work. I was up there a bunch of times with him and had great discussions with him. And, you know, and he had credited some of the Palladians as being the ones that inspired him to build the machine. And so he was very spiritual and very advanced. And he had said, back in the 50s, when he was like 18 years old and he first got recruited by the Pentagon. So he was there when his first teacher was one of the co-developers of the hydrogen bomb. So that's the level he went in on. So he was there when they were blowing up, testing out the atomic bombs underground, where they had these big tunnels like filled with helium gas, and they would measure shock waves, you know, to understand what kind of effects are created and by these explosions. He goes, back then they discovered that those explosions create shock waves that are faster than the speed of light.
Wow.
So they were like, oh crap, Einstein was wrong. So what do? We have to classify it top secret. You know,
I guess he couldn't be right about everything, eh?
Well, I know, but that shows how they kept that illusion, because it's such a core thing, limitation again. Mm-hmm. So they keep people limited and saying that anybody who questions that idea of limitation gets shot down. You know, and this is so subtle but so deep and embedded in our society in so many different ways that we've been conditioned to live, interact, exchange. You know, so imagine that. So since the 50s, you know, they were working on how do we create shock waves that are faster than light speed, you know, with less energy. We're talking like over like 7 years ago. It's crazy. You know, think about how far they've come in the covert sector with that knowledge that they kept secret. And this is the idea people understand, that when we start talking about the idea of secret space programs and more advanced cultures, you know, how far we've leaped just by discovering, say, electricity, and then computing, and how far things have come. So imagine if we understood that some of these basic limitations are no longer there, how far they could jump ahead technologically, and then by keeping it out of our mainstream, we then are so left in illusion that we're still driving our clunky machines around, you know, as if we're still in the 1950s, you know.
Just like the Amish people back there, they're still living 400 years ago. All right, and I don't understand that, because I say we have all these conveniences to make life easier. What are you doing?
I know, right? It's kind of like a little bit of both would be better. My preference too. But you know, I was just mentioning because at that point, you know, he mentioned just some of the other technologies that were going on, and how many things have been suppressed over the years. And he invented so many other devices that he couldn't even get out there because they would just be free energy devices, tap into 0 point energy. So many things he's aware of that they already have in the military, but they keep it quiet and make us fight over bullshit oil or BS oil and things like that are not relevant. That's more relevant for geopolitics and control. It's not relevant for actual society that you want to be set free.
What do you think about the idea of that they want to make all cars electric in 10 years?
Well, this is the thing. They had electric vehicles back in the many decades ago that were even more efficient than we have now. And so that's what I'm saying.
Oh, God forbid we should develop those.
That's what I'm saying. That they've already had technology that I'm gonna have another scientist friend who's been working on some devices that I can't go into as much detail now, but he had like 3 friends that literally were just killed because they were trying to get these types of machines out there. And there's been so many of these scientists that if they're not killed by different factions of the power structures that be, and if they decide to try to patent it, God forbid, their patents will usually be classified national security, so they can't ever release it or make any money off of it or get it out there, or they're given a job on one of the covert areas, and if they don't accept that, they're like blacklisted, So it's either total suppression, or they try to like ridicule or blackmail the scientists.
Sounds like communism.
Oh, it's like the corporatism with it, though. It's like because the corporations want to maintain that control, and it's also the national security state of the countries. Where they want to maintain that power. The petrodollar and the oil industry has such a connection to so many other levels of our of what we think is our machinery of our system. And it's like, no, we don't need it. We're so far beyond it. It's going to come out. I mean, there are things going on, behind the scenes with it, where these people are going to push it out in certain ways where it will become more apparent, and it's like they can only control the floodgates of the dam for so long, before it pops, and then.
So then you think that there's going to be big changes? Then.
I mean, but and even from the horse's mouth, was it about a year or two ago? The Navy put out all these amazing patents. All of a sudden, that were blowing our minds because these are things you'd hear about more in the conspiracy world. But like one of the top scientists from the Navy, under Secretary of Navy permission, was they filed for patents, public patents, not even classified ones, public ones on all these on the triangle craft, the ones we see, the black triangle spaceships.
Yeah, I've seen them on TV.
Well, the Navy patented that, where they basically call it like a craft that flies through air, space, and ocean, and they talk about technologies of room temperature superconductors, of fusion technology, of anti-gravity, of creating gravity waves. They're doing all these patents of things that are normally considered sci-fi-ish. The patent Navy put it all out, and then the public media was like, "What's going on with that?" And there's some scientists like, "Oh, we don't believe that." I'm like, "Well, you don't have to believe it. This is the government telling you they already have it, and now they're trying to put it out there a little bit, And then there was even an argument the patent office had. One of the I can't remember which group was talking about online, but if people look up like Navy UFO patents on Google, there'll be a lot of articles that'll pop up about that. But there was even an in-house fight because some people in the patent office were like, "We're trying to stop it," and then because they thought it was just theoretical instead of actual. Device that was already made, So literally they had to the tops.
They didn't know it was with physically there already.
Yeah, with heads of Navy, had really contacted.
And
they're saying no. They're saying this is not theoretical. This is actually already in action.
Yeah.
So you have to give us the patent because it's already there. It's not So, but it's funny. So they're already trying to create this little infrastructure of like dripping information to the public, but not enough people are grabbing onto the details of it. It's getting drowned out by other drama going on that we have all around us, that we're...
Well, yeah, but that's done on purpose, too.
That's the point I'm getting at, exactly.
Yeah, they have to...
the theater of distraction.
Yes, it distracts from what they want you to be distracted from.
Exactly. And
so what do you think is going to happen then? I mean, what's your prediction about how it's all going to come down?
Because, the idea of this ascension also is that we really are a Star Trek society already. It's just that we're not being told it.
And we're not wearing the clothes.
Exactly. We have access to nice, fun toys. I had a friend who worked for FEMA, and after he got his secret clearance and he was allowed deeper entrance underground, into one of the FEMA bases. He goes, Steve, they had stuff right out of Star Trek there, but I can't tell you specifically. Which surprised me because like, well, I wouldn't think FEMA would have that level of technology. I think that's more like for Lockheed Martin or other companies like that. But I'm like, wow, even if FEMA's dealing with Star Trek technology, imagine what the other groups have. You know?
I can imagine because they said that a lot of this stuff today is reality.
Yeah. And that's the point. The point is that part of the ascension is that as we're being, I mean, if what I see currently, it's more like 2029 is 2028 is earliest. 2029 is a more realistic time for the positive extraterrestrials to come in who want to make their public show for us in a good way, because there's going to be extra shifts happening that are important trigger points for our ascension that'll be more clearly viewable and during that time period, especially as we go into 2030, including extra changes in the sun. I mean, when we stop having massive flares in the sun that hit the Earth to the level where we have northern lights seen all the way down to the equator, that's when the real ascension process is like going to be kickstarting on the planet.
Okay,
it's
we'll
that's
have
like
to keep an eye out for that.
that's going to be huge, of course, when it gets to that level. But during that process, the positive galactic beings want to be able to build structures in our society, just like you'd have in Star Trek idea, build embassies, build teaching institutions, build healing institutions, build an infrastructure where we can reflect their architecture of their beautiful, their beautiful cities that are much more advanced and build with more material that could be in harmony with the environment, and positive usage of technology that's being kept from us will be fully out in the open. So the thing is that, so it's a combination of us both being pushing for that release here publicly, what we have already, as well as being open to the idea and visioning it together, because the idea is, well, we're supposed to be visualizing this age of Aquarius together so we can ground it more, right? And so it's using that light of love to open up that pathway of energy through the cloud that we've been set up with as a kind of veil to obscure us. But no, we don't consent anymore to this matrix of control, And so there are different groups that have been, that are involved in that we need to really on a higher level call out. But no, we don't give our authority away anymore. We don't give our jurisdiction away to any of these negative groups that have been working with our governments in a increasing negative way to control us. So part of half the battle is being aware and then not giving consent, right? And then calling in what you want to replace it with.
So you think in the long run they're not going to get away with it?
100% not. But that's why they're more desperate right now, where they're really trying to buy more time. I mean, there have been other times where we could have had positive landing already back in the 2013, 2015. There was earlier windows. We could have had visitation already in a public way. But the negative ET groups and the military industrial complex and the secret societies, definitely don't want that. So they've been buying more time, literally, by tricking people to loop into these lower patterns of unresolved trauma, unresolved pain, and getting
personal problems.
Well, personal problems are used as poking sticks to amplify collective drama. Right? So if people have parent issues and they end up projecting it on their leaders. They end up wanting a savior figure from their mayor or from the governor or whatever leader, instead of understanding that we're supposed to be the ones helping to lead the way, right? And kind of divine mother, divine father, right? So so if there's like shadow energies where we have not healed, say, on deeper understanding of like the fact that there's positive and negative mother energy, and there's positive and negative female and male energy.
I guess
just like with the Queen of England, this idea that there's like negative patriarchy, negative matriarchy. There's negative and positive on both sides. It just depends on, are they using love or not, right? Or are they being abusive? So if people haven't dealt with their own basic stuff yet, then they're more easily controllable by puppet heads, figures, where all of a sudden you get these people that end up triggering those tribal points in people, or they end up triggering those unresolved shadow, and then people get confused because you're saying, how do you not notice this person that you're right there is so dark and evil? You're just thinking that, oh, because they're a woman, they're positive, like Hillary Clinton or something. How do you it's this idea.
Great example.
Yeah, seriously. Well, it's like the false mother archetype, and because all of a sudden people are like, oh, well, she's a female. Well, that means she's positive by default. It's like
doesn't make you a good person.
No, there's plenty of dark people out there that are both genders. We obviously know that, right?
That's right.
So but because it is brainwashing, where they want to fill in a gap or a void, people could all of a sudden start throwing all their cards in one area, even if it's like a very deficient area. So it's like taking back the power, but no, stop, use discernment, feel it out, read between the lines, right? Same thing with ETs and other beings. Okay, read between the lines. Are they coming as a fake messenger? Is it real light or is it false light? And are they using trickery or not? Same way you would with entities, And so there's one group that I did want to mention during this thing that's important. Two groups that are important to mention, and then on a negative, and then some positive ones as we kind of go down, because I feel like they need to be called out more too. There is a negative group that's like, well, people talk about them all the time. The Nordics. There's like positive like Nordic ETs, and there's negative like Nordic ETs. All right, and so that's not anything new, but things that happens as I work with clients and I work at different locations, I see different infrastructure being turned on technology-wise that hasn't been used before, in different areas, and it's been happening a lot, especially since the beginning of this past year, and different people's energy fields have shown up with this kind of like energetic, what I call kind of like, think of like your malware in your computer, where you have to update your security protocols so you don't open up negative emails that have traps in there for you, right, or scams in there. So the same idea is that in our energy body, there's other structures that are being projected in people's energy bodies that are like control structures, like energetic collars or negative belts, for example, or like there's one group. That I talked about before. I don't know if I talked about with you, but they were working more with the Beelzebub, kind of like that demonic archetype, like Lord of the Flies, idea. They're from a planet called Southern Cross constellation, but they work more with the Tree of Death energy instead of the Tree of Life. So, which also a lot of the satanic and dark groups work with that symbolism.
The word gangs comes to mind.
Very good point, gangs.
So it sounds like they're in gangs.
Yeah, basically like in interplanetary or interstellar criminal syndicates. Yeah, that would be a good way to put it too.
Almost mafioso type.
Very much, but unfortunately on the very dark side of it. Yeah. Yeah, they have their turf, Yeah, and so this one group. I started seeing this negative like black tree like symbol coming up in people's fields from the ground, and it just started like interlacing into people's nervous systems, and they were getting a lot of pain, a lot of blockages in the field, and depressed, and different energies, and then once we pull it off, be like, no, we don't consent to this Tree of Death, construct. It's like holographic malware, that shows up as an information, as like a template or a stamp, or a pattern in the field. So and these groups work with. It's like, think of like 3D printing where you can print an object, but I call it more like 4D printing, like astral printing, and because there is a term called 4D, but it's more like energy constructs. Think of like old school days of people want to do dark magic and they want to control, and they put a certain structure around somebody to like mess with them. So this is just done on a more refined level in technology.
Right.
Doing it.
So basically, what you're saying is good will overcome evil, and how and when do you think that might happen? Will we see it in our lifetime?
Well, if there's going to be landings in 2029, so if we stick to that timeline, that's going to be huge. So that means a lot of work has to be done before that to start kicking out these idiots more.
Well, that's what I mean, yeah.
And so what I saw recently in my trip to Florida was that a lot of these recent storms we had across the country, these high-level thunderstorms and stuff that were happening, that they were cover for fightings that was going on between the positive and negative ET groups.
In other words, out in outer space. So
not here, or just above the air,
Just right, but where we can't see them.
Or because some of the ships are, it's like how sometimes you have UFOs that'll look like clouds because they'll make a cloud around the ship as a cover.
Oh, I saw a program once that the cloud itself was in the shape of a ship.
Yeah, it's because there's actual ship inside. They're just projecting.
Exactly, that's what they were saying. It had to be.
So, and even like with the Native Americans, like there was back in the day, there was a friend of mine. I haven't talked to him in many years, but one of the Lakota spiritual leaders, Harold Whitehorse Thompson. Back in 2007, a friend of mine had organized some events with him. We did in the city. We helped him bring in stuff to Manhattan. Where first time he came over to do some like Lakota ceremony in New York City. He stayed at my place back then for about a week, and awesome guy. He saved me from a nasty negative ET thing that was trying to happen at that time. But he talked about the Star Nations and about how the old battles between like the Thunder beings they have in their tradition, that the same word they have for dinosaurs was same word for dragons. So the old days that when the Thunder beings fought against the dragons or dark beings, that it was that part of this energy in the sky with the lightning energy. That's how we usually depict them, and but it's so this is something that different groups, and they talk about how the different native tribes have had active contact over the centuries or millennia with these different ET groups. So it's that, and they understand that they're returning. So this is not something that's like so surprising for a lot of these groups of people that have been around for a long time. It's more modern society that forgot, and been repressed. So the point I'm trying to get at with that is that them using lightning storms as cover is something that's been seen throughout time or different history points. But what they were showing me recently was that they said that there literally was a negative alien invasion scenario that just got stopped like with a few weeks ago, literally.
Really? Where?
By the positive groups, and that this is a second alien invasion scenario that's been stopped in about a year and a half.
And those are the bad guys?
Yeah, about a year and a half ago, last September, there was the reptilians were trying to come in and do a massive actual, but the whole thing is to me is kind of a joke, because these groups are already working with power structures consciously at certain bases that they have with different military industrial groups, as well as their own bases. So, but because they understand that they're losing time as well, they're being more daring and trying just to come out and grab as much as they can, a little kind of like a land grab, idea.
Uh-huh.
And so last year the Andromedans came in though, and they were like, no, we can't allow the reptilians to do a massive public invasion. This is BS. So they're preparing the time.
Massive public invasion?
Oh yeah, they were going to come with the fleets like over the over the big cities and stuff.
God.
Twice already this was going to happen. The recent one was very recent. So that's all. That's what I'm saying. There are things happening that are very real right now that are very intense, and people
that we don't know
have a
about
clue about. Yeah. So it's so you feel the tension, because what I've seen with this negative infrastructure that's being built up is that this is part of their plan, because they're kind of like trying to terraform, or make the environment more compatible for them on an energetic level. And part of that idea is getting people more plugged into their system, because they understand that's like, okay, as new light is coming in and the positive shifts are happening, they're trying to reverse the process as much as they can. Not that they can do it long term, but short term it can create headaches and a lot of pain in the body and a lot of like drama for people, because it's like turning up the volume on negative emotions and negative scenarios instead of positive. So our part of our goals idea is we need to focus more on saying that we do not give consent to any of these negative ET groups and to manipulate any of our history,
that's good.
to manipulate our timelines. That we really want to reinforce the idea of, okay, we want to welcome in our positive star nations to come through us and help transform your area more as an extension of the positive realms instead of the negative. So it's like, okay, want to be an extension of a Palladian beautiful city of light, that represents our future, as opposed to say a negative, gray alien, situation, or a negative reptilian space. But I did want to mention, I keep diverting here. There is one of the groups that's like, they're like a Joker alien clown group that I wanted to briefly mention, because they're working with the negative, like Nordic ETs. And that's the thing, a lot of these negative groups are teaming up more, because they also understand that their time is losing, so they're getting more opportunistic to try to, work together more, kind of like
strength in numbers.
Yeah, kind of like rival gang leaders meeting together to try to take over an area, they're where they want to like work together for a certain duration.
But they're not going to succeed.
Oh, long term they're not, but short term, it's the next 2 years are very volatile, and so we need to really put a lot more prayer, a lot more meditation, a lot more angelic intervention. Be like, okay, we want to be able to send light not only to the next couple of years, but also retroactively, because a lot of this fighting is happening not just now, but it's happening in time.
Okay, I'm going to address my audience again the way I did once before, asking you to pray. I said pray before for other things, especially when the whole Ukraine thing started. We were afraid we were going to end up going into World War III. Thank God that hasn't happened, and keep praying that it doesn't, please. But now that Stephen is mentioning prayer to make sure that these alien forces do not succeed at what they are planning to do, which is to take us over and be our leaders, which we don't want.
Yeah.
So please pray. Just keep praying and pray that everything remains calm in this world, that this age of Aquarius that we have entered, that is supposed to bring us world peace, will happen. Pray for that. Thank you.
And that's also important about the Aquarius part, because like every sign has this high and low, right? It has this light and shadow side. Mm-hmm. And so the thing is that we're kind of going through the shadow side of Aquarius first before we go to the light side of Aquarius. And the shadow side of Aquarius is this communistic lower collectivism energy, because it's about the collective consciousness.
Okay.
So, but think about political parties that misuse the idea of collectivism.
Well, that's right. That's them.
This is why we're seeing it expanding out now, because they're trying to harness the energy of what Aquarius is about, but diluting and polluting it in a distorted lens. So it's like taking advantage of people's desire to want to unite to a greater cause and work with positive
But
values.
giving them the wrong cause.
Yes. So it's taking advantage of that archetypal bursting out that's happening, in a deeper wellspring, that people don't understand, that affects our emotions and our thoughts. So they're trying to like streamline the hose, of that. And this is why it's so important that we understand that Aquarius is also opposite Leo, and we need to balance out our personal inner sun, inner heart, inner regality, being your own higher divine authority, inner king, queen of your kingdom, and be like, no, I do not consent to anything negative being in my kingdom.
That's right.
And so that together we create a collective Aquarian positive kingdom of networked light cities, of networked communities that are working together in a good way.
Well, that's right. And when on a personal level, you can also be saying things like, I do not allow any negative energies to enter my home or my property or enter anything that belongs to me and does not interfere with me and my family.
100%. And I would say even expanding and saying that we do not consent to any treaties that our governments have made with any of these negative ET groups, that they're not consensual with our individual agreement. So it's like that we want to revoke any contracts, treaties, ties, binds
that we might have had with them.
That our governments made, that whatever our governments made are not reflective of what we're choosing personally.
Exactly.
And that they should not have any jurisdiction over us to do anything, including, we don't give permission for any of these negative ET groups to put any kind of infrastructure, new technology, or any kind of stuff to siphon our energies. We are not giving that permission.
That's right.
Anymore. Over it. We're not to be commodified anymore. That's what they're trying to do, is commodify people.
That's the whole thing. When it comes to negative and positive, it's a matter of permission. And if you say you do not have my permission to enter my home, to enter my life, to interfere with my family, even my pets, everything, okay? You have to, and you know what they say, if there's a knock at your door, don't just open it.
Yes.
Ask who it is.
That's why you got a
and
window.
If you don't get an answer, don't open the door. Because if you just open the door, you might be opening it up to something negative. That's why you have to always know what's on the other side of your door when somebody knocks or rings your bell or whatever.
Yeah. And as I mentioned, this other group, they're like they basically work with the dark clown or trickster archetype. That's why. So like a lot of the stuff involving like dark Joker, clown movie, that energy. That's
why a lot of people are afraid of clowns.
Yeah, seriously. No, there is a negativity. They actually work with that archetype, and they use like dark funhouse mirrors and different structures in people's fields that they'll create. I've had a client in Miami the other day who had to do all the work, and they're doing a lot of work. Unfortunately, some of these groups are doing a lot of stuff in some of the bigger cities where they're trying to lay down the infrastructure first to test it out, and see how people react to it, so we had to like remove, these negative mirrors that they put around the person that were connecting to his own personal mirror, out each direction has a symbol, the air is the east, and the west is the water element that relates to the moon or the mirror. So they were literally creating a negative frame over his mirror and then making a negative circle of mirrors around him oracally to try to enclose him. So the idea is to ask angels to deconstruct that. We don't want any false mirrors. You don't give permission for any of your elements that make up your body or directions, dramatically, spiritually, physically, to be used against you or be replaced by any fake version, or you don't consent to any infiltration, any direction.
That's right.
You have to be like a lawyer with some of this stuff sometimes and be like, okay, it's like
you have to have complete control over your whole life, physical, mental, spiritual, everything. You have to always be aware of what's going on around you, who's going around you. You have to just know everything, especially in this day and age, because there's a lot of bad spirit out there. There's a lot of negativity, and there's some positive stuff too. Try to always attract the positive. Always keep positive thoughts. Don't think about this is bad, that's bad. No, see the good. When you see the good, you get the good.
Yeah, it's like you said, having the discernment though too, to be to call it out. Half the battle's in being aware.
Yes.
And being aware that these things are around. And and like one of the positive groups we work a lot with are from like Arcturus, and they're the positive version of like the Norse, the real Asgardians, like kind of like think of like the Thor movies. If people seen like the Thor movies, at least the first one, the first two, I would say are more grounded with the symbolism that I would say is more accurate. How they depicted Asgard in the first movie was actually very close to how the city looks on that planet in Arcturus, which we call which is known as Valthusia and Valdoria are the two names. So when I refer to them, I also call in these Arcturians in a specific way. So like we've discussed this probably in previous episodes, the idea of the star heart, where it's like the evolution of the heart chakra that's happening, where it can show up as like a circle or like a diamond around someone's auric body, where there are different entrance points of light coming into each face of the diamond into the person's heart chakra. So it's like our idea is that we're learning to evolve our hearts to open up to receive more love from more parts of the cosmos, because we've been so conditioned to live off of a tiny amount instead of being more open to larger.
And in receiving more love, you have to put out more love too.
It's exactly, yeah.
And if you're angry with someone, or there's somebody that you really don't like, you can detach yourself from that person. You don't have to bother with the person, but just detach with love.
Yeah, and be and push your limits to be open to receive more love, and from ways you don't even realize you were
Be
there for
open
you.
to receiving more love.
Yeah, from different directions, from different sources.
From
because
everywhere.
That's
From God on down.
Exactly. Because we've been so corralled in, geometrically or energetically, to like be boxed in a lower way, and not realizing that our geometries are evolving to show us that there's more pathways, like our neural networks, and more pathways to connect with positive civilizations, just like a beautiful web of life that's expanding in a good way, to network us.
That's right.
And to be free of the things that are negatively reinforcing that is constantly kind of checking ourselves. So with those Arcturians, I would say I would call, when I invoke them, I'd be like, I call on the star heart, Arcturians of Valdoria or Valthusia, like positive Thor, Odin, kind of like light command ships, or different terms. Like when I do my group work, there's a lot of these beings come in, so people can. Some videos I put on YouTube as well, and other ones I do in Zoom with the group meditations. And so there'll be different groups that come in during different activations we do that people can also tune into. And I always record them all, and make them available for people too. If anybody and if viewers want to hear some of the activations, we could definitely do that as well and show that to them.
In the meantime, we're getting the signal.
Yes.
You see him out there?
I saw some vortex in his finger there.
In the meantime, this was very interesting,
Thank you.
informative. I learned a lot, and I hope our audience did too. And in the meantime, everybody have a good evening, and just keep the positive thought and keep praying. Good night.
Definitely. Thank you.